This podcast is sponsored by nobody. Hey dudes, welcome to Splat from the Past, the only 80s themed horror and sci-fi show where things can get totally radical. Now today, I will be welcoming the gorgeous, the sexy, the talented Cheryl Rixon. Cheryl, of course, is from Australia, and she was a Miss West Coast bikini pageant winner, and she was in Penthouse magazine. She got to be in the Australian sex comedy movie Plug. She was on a popular series out there called The Box, and she was in the cult classic Robert Zemeckis and Bob Gale made way before Back to the Future, Used Cars, celebrating its 45th anniversary, and it's going to be a great show today. I'm so excited. She was also in Swap Meet, a American teen sex comedy movie that came out the year before, and she also used to be a fixture at Studio 54, I found out. She is a jewelry designer currently. And yeah, this is going to be a great conversation. Once again, I'm so excited. Um, she's the girl who has the wardrobe malfunction in used cars when Garrett Graham is like, doing a commercial with her. It's a classic scene. It's going to be great to have her today. Also, rest in peace, Jill Sobel, who sang I Kissed a Girl in the 90s, not the Katy Perry song. That's such a sad tragedy. Also, rest in peace, Ruth Buzzy, one of the funniest ladies ever on Laugh-In. I asked her to come on the podcast back in 2018. She declined, but she was very complimentary to me and said that I was inspirational. Now she can hit the angels with her purse. So yeah, here is my interview with Cheryl Rixon.
Hello, Tommy.
Hey Cheryl, welcome to the show. How are you today?
Hey, thanks. I'm all right. I'm awake.
Yeah, so
It's
am I.
always good.
Yeah, this is such a great honor. Thank you so much for coming on today.
Oh, thanks for thinking of me.
Absolutely. So, going back in time,
Yeah.
you started modeling pretty young. Like, did you start out in beauty pageants when you were like 6, like John Benet Ramsey did?
Not quite that young, but kind of the same style. Yeah, we had some little beauty pageants in Perth, in Western Australia, where I'm from.
Hmm.
So I did do a couple of those, although our dresses were a little more grown up at the time.
Yeah. I can imagine you were pretty adorable even at that age.
Well, it was the same makeup and hair, let me say that.
What was your trajectory when you were a kid growing up in Australia?
I didn't think about it much. I was playing tennis and swimming and running in all the school events and playing basketball. And I did 9 years of gymnastics, which came in
Huh.
handy later. That was good for posture and limber body. And I hadn't really thought about too much. One of my school teachers told me that she asked me in exasperation one day what I was going to do when I grew up, and I said I was going to be a model. And she laughed and said, "Yeah, you and 10,000 other girls." And then, she said she wasn't surprised when I suddenly was a model at 16.
Yeah, so you were an athlete, you competed in sports, and you thought maybe that was
Yeah.
going to be your future at first, right?
I really did. I imagined I'd go to the Olympics as a gymnast or I'd play tennis on the professional circuit. That
Hmm.
was kind of what we were raised to do.
Yeah.
That's what I was surrounded by with an athletic dad who did all those things. So we grew up playing sports every day after school and all weekend, and kind of got me ready for what I was about to do, because it was good physical conditioning, discipline.
Hmm.
I knew nothing came easy. You've got to work at whatever it is you're going to do. Then I went to fine arts college,
Hmm.
and when the the models wouldn't show up for our human form sketch classes. We all took turns and I stepped in. And it just started there in art school.
Wow. And so you went to art school, and so you were good at drawing and painting and all of that.
Yeah, I'm from a family of painters, artists. My sister is a professional sketcher, fashion illustrator. She did animation special effects for a film company in England. And my mum was a fine arts painter, paints portraits and really beautiful, like Rembrandt style.
Oh,
And seems to be my sisters, all my nieces, and most of the women in our family went into one form of design or illustration or painting. Yeah, so
wow.
it's a nice thing to have in the blood, to have that in the genes is kind of cool. And I really appreciated painting and illustration, and then modeling just became an extension of that. And I really got into the photography of the 70s. I loved photos. So I think the biggest arguments I ever had with my mom was that photography can be as fine an art as painting.
Yeah. So you became a twice finalist in the Miss West Coast bikini pageant in Perth, and
Yes.
then you became a hostess on a local game show. What was it?
Oh, I must have done 9 or 10 game shows.
Oh wow.
Uh, it was a small community, really. Perth was a little city,
Yeah.
so anything that came to town, anything they were shooting, it was the same handful of models that did everything. Did the live fashion events, the cabaret shows at the clubs, dancing, whatever was happening, we were just expected to do. So we did.
Mm-hmm.
I did, to tell the truth, I was a judge on a singing show. I did all the local telethons. Every game show that happened, I ended up on it.
Yeah.
Me and 4 or 5 other girls, you know. It was just
Yeah.
expected that was what we do. So when they shot the first full-length feature film, which was the comedy Plug in
Yeah.
Perth, when I wasn't 17 yet when we started shooting that because I had no driver's license. Um, I just got phone calls and they said, we were told you're the girl to call to play the lead in this comedy that was a spoof, like a Pink Panther kind of thing,
Yeah.
and with much more nudity in the sunshine. And I said, no, I'm busy. I was making a bikini when they called me. I was sewing.
Yeah.
And I said, great, thanks, but I'm busy. I really don't have time to shoot a movie, and I'm not an actress. And they called me back and they said, well, we're told you're the girl that should play this. So I went, okay. And I did Plug, that's become a little bit of a cult thing. And
I watched
it
it.
was fun. It was lovely memories. And we used all the other girls in town. One of my sisters, everyone was in it in, one form or another.
I watched it the other night on YouTube, and I hadn't seen it before. And oh my God, yeah, you're right. Those opening cartoon titles are like the Pink Panther, except they're
Yeah.
like 6 minutes long, whereas the Pink
Yeah.
Panther is like 2.5, maybe three most. I'm like, God, this is
Yeah.
going on forever. I had to skip it.
Oh no. I know it does, doesn't it? I just watch it, reading all the names that are on it to remind me of all my friends that were in it. They brought a couple of actors, Norman Yam and guys that were big television actors from the East, from Sydney and Melbourne. They brought to Perth to do that. So it was big news that we had these actors brought in to be in it. And then all the girls in it were just all our local friends. And as you see, willing to, take a shot at anything.
Yeah.
And it was the place to be. We're shooting a pool scene, everyone's naked. Okay, can I bring my sister? You know.
There's that scene where you're like working the phones and you say like, "Do you have
Oh
any
yeah, yeah.
do you have any fancies like whips?"
Yeah, I know. We were always hookers. We were always the call girls. There was a show called Number 96 that was the top rated detective series in Australia.
Yeah.
And the first thing I ever shot with Carla Hugaveen and John English, that were big names there, was a 90-minute special, television special. And I was in that. And I've never done anything. So Carla, bless her heart, took me under her wing and, helped me through it. We had the silliest scenes. And Tony Bonner, who is an international actor,
Hmm.
he killed me in that one. And I had to die. I think he beat me up and I was doing drugs, and I was mortified thinking my mother would see me on this and think I did drugs. I couldn't
Yeah.
disassociate from the characters. And I was so embarrassed. And I saw it about a year ago, and it was actually really good. I thought, wow, I look like I'm doing drugs. And then I did a number of episodes for the same show, always a different character, always a call girl.
Yeah.
And they used to ask me to bring my own wardrobe. There was no wardrobe department then. I would bring
Yeah.
my own clothes to be the hooker.
Yeah.
And I watch it, and I don't even have any recollection of shooting some of those episodes.
Wow.
There's people on it I'm in the scene with that I don't remember having ever met, but I know who they are. So I don't know. It must have been more, hope my mum doesn't see me, out of body experiences where I was just showing up in denial.
Yeah.
But it's quite fun to watch because it was a big series, and every time it's clearly me,
Hmm.
but I'm always a different hooker.
Was that
The hooker next door.
was that the box?
Yeah, The Box was the series they put me in
Hmm.
to counteract Number 96, that was the show out of Sydney, and they wrote me into The Box to take ratings from the other show, which worked, which was good for a while.
Hmm.
And in that one, I didn't even know I was playing a virgin that everyone was trying to deflower.
Yeah.
And through the course of the year, I think I slept with every male cast member on the show.
Yeah.
And again, I never watched it. I just couldn't bear to watch it myself. But recently, they released it on box set, so I've gotten to watch it, and it's damn funny. And I watch it, and I can't believe so many of the characters are older characters,
Yeah.
and everyone does nudity. There's so much nudity. And I thought I was the only one naked getting through these scenes, and they're bizarre. And suddenly I'm watching it and I see extras behind me, completely full frontal nudity, men, women, older people, people of different shapes and sizes. And I can't believe it. And I guess I didn't turn around and look, But
Yeah.
there's so much nudity on there, and so many diverse characters, and it's a gay love story. And I think, oh no, this was so far before our time. And it was an evening show. As far as I remember, it was a family rated show.
Hmm.
And my little sisters and brother used to watch it with my mum and dad. And I couldn't bear to see myself on camera, or I would have known all these things might have helped. But it's
Yeah.
really fun to watch now. But because it's so diverse and ticks all the boxes for this time we're in, I'm just mortified that they'll sell it to a streaming network. In which case, I'm
Uh,
going to deny that it's me because I can't relate to that person.
I've been an extra in things. I never had that much fun.
I know. And I can't believe the things they just asked us to do.
I
And I was
know.
like, okay, I don't mind. Yeah, I'll
I
do it.
I know. And at that time, Paul Hogan had a dirty sketch show in Australia. I've
Mm-hmm.
seen it in recent years on YouTube. It was like the Benny Hill show, and
Yeah.
Australia just like other countries like England, Germany, and France, they've always been more open about the body and nudity than here in America, you know?
Oh, it was all TNA. It was all like in good humor, cutesy, very Benny Hill.
Hmm.
And that's just all we did from the time I started modeling. That's what was expected. And everyone was doing it. And that's what made us popular and gave us a career. And it was really fun. And we'd grown up in 120 degrees sunshine. I mean, we were used to having nothing on or very tiny bikinis on the beach. Uh, it wasn't uncomfortable for us. And then 1977, I moved to New York.
Hmm.
And I guess I was a novelty that I never questioned nudity. And also, I arrived there for the best time in New York, going into the 80s of fashion and the art world and the music world and music videos.
Hmm.
It was just like an explosion of all kinds of artistic expression all mixed together. I met Bob Guccione, Andy Warhol, Holston,
Yeah.
everybody all at once. Steve Rebell lived above me, studio opened, then the Ritz and Xenon and all the other clubs opened. And we went there dancing at night with very little on.
Yeah.
And nobody really questioned anything. It was such a freedom of expression. I arrived in the right place at the right time. And I was so comfortable with nudity that I worked from the time I arrived, and then worked with all the high fashion models there.
Yeah.
All of them were naked all the time. Nobody questioned having to share a dressing room with, 6 to 12 other models all changing. It just wasn't something we're self-conscious about.
Yeah, I saw the E True Hollywood story on Studio 54, and you were interviewed on it. And so
Yeah.
you saw somebody snort coke with a rolled up $100 bill.
I saw a lot of people do that. Yeah, a lot of people. It was a crazy time.
Yeah.
And I never did drugs. I just wasn't into drugs because I guess it was the gymnastics and my tennis background and stuff that we were so um, preconditioned to take care of our health that I hadn't started drinking then and I didn't do any drugs. So I was so health conscious. It really sustained me through that time.
I talked to this one actress. She was at Studio 54, and she went into the alley to smoke a cigarette, and she found a guy giving a girl a golden shower.
Who was that? Who said that?
Her name is Rena Ferrari. She was in the French Connection, but that was about
Oh,
it.
yeah.
And
Oh.
she was this funny lady with a New York Puerto Rican accent, and just the way she
Hmm.
said it, it was hilarious.
The Puerto Ricans dominated New York in the 80s. They were fantastic.
Yeah,
And there were so many Puerto Rican drag queens, and all the students at the Fashion
yeah,
Institute, that was like 90% Puerto Ricans. They were
yeah,
so colorful and expressive. And I walked the runways for them when they'd show their creations at end of term. It was a thing to walk the runways with all the Puerto Rican fashion students because they were the most fab.
yeah.
And so we did these crazy shows with Bessie Johnson at the time and Norma Kamali. I mean, fashion was just a wonderful world. We used to do shows over the ice at Rockefeller Plaza, and the Puerto Ricans had the best shows at FIT.
Hmm.
And we didn't even get paid for those. Those we did gratis because none of them had any money going to school. And I think the most fun work we did was the work we did for free, even
Hmm.
with photography, because I loved photography. And I just went from one shoot to another. If I didn't have a commercial shoot, an editorial or something that was paying, and I had a free day or a free afternoon, I went and did a free shoot for an up and coming photographer because you just did it for the experience, for the work. And I think most of the photos that I ever went back for and collected for my portfolio was all the free work. It was all the experimental stuff.
Hmm.
I don't think I even thought to go back and look at stuff I was paid for unless it was printed in a magazine and I got the tear sheet. But the work that I loved the best was what we did for free. And it was that collective of just creative passion that everyone was creating something unique.
Oh, yeah.
So we didn't quabble about fees and being paid because it was so much work we were getting paid enough, by other work to survive.
Yeah.
And we spent most of our time working for nothing.
It was an amazing creative time. Everybody knew each other. There was no internet.
Oh,
It was magical
yeah.
from what I understand. And I saw on your Instagram you knew like the New York Dolls and Kiss, right?
Yeah. Kiss are my friends since that time. They still are. And
Yeah.
I do a jewelry collection with Paul Stanley still. And we took that on the Kiss cruise. He wanted to do something for the Kiss Navy. And I mean, their marketing and what they did was extraordinary. But I was so busy all the time, I didn't even have time to notice what anybody else was doing.
Hmm.
I was always interested in music. I was very interested in fashion and illustration and hadn't even thought about designing either. I was just busy doing shoots, and then different movies came up by circumstance through modeling. And that got to be a fun thing, even though I'd never seriously considered acting.
Hmm.
I'd done quite a lot and picked up some sort of skills along the way just by being prepared and willing.
Yeah. And you got into Penthouse. Were you in Playboy too?
I was, again, by
Yeah.
circumstance, because the rule was if you're in Playboy, you couldn't do Penthouse. If you're in Penthouse, you couldn't do Playboy. Because I was in New York, I was brought to the attention of Guccione. When I arrived there, I did the bicentennial cover
Hmm.
for his photo magazine, Photo World or Photography,
Hmm.
in a red, white, and blue cover. And I thought, well, that's the best welcome to America you could get, doing a bicentennial cover. And I did a few things for him because Eileen Ford used to send all the models to Guccione to do Viva magazine, that was their answer to Cosmopolitan.
Hmm.
And he had so many publications other than Penthouse that I'd worked a lot for his other publications. And he asked for me to come to the house to meet him. And I met him that day and he said, I'm going to make you the Penthouse Pet of the Year. And I thought, yeah, he tells all the girls that. And I'd been told that back in Australia for the Miss West Coast. They'd used me for press and they told me that I was going to be the winner, but then they held me over for another year, told me again, as we groom you and you're older, you'll be the Miss West Coast next year. And I was like, I'm not buying that story again. So when he told me I was going to be Pet of the Year, I didn't believe him. And I stuck around and I worked a lot for Penthouse and the publication. And I absolutely adored them. Bob was a doll. I liked him so much. I liked most of the girls. I had such a great time with their in-house photographer, Pat Hill. She had a studio in the office building on Third Avenue. And
Hmm.
I must have shot with Pat 3, 4 times a week at least. And then when I did Swap Meet, he ran
Hmm.
a feature on that. And then when I became Pet of the Year, uh, it was Spielberg and Zemeckis had seen
Hmm.
my photos for Pet of the Year, or the press about it. And they called me to Zoetrope Studios to audition for them because they
Hmm.
were looking for a model for used cars. So a girlfriend gave me a lift over there. And I went up and met them, and they were just three fun young men in jeans and t-shirts, tired, sitting around the office. Stephen was lying on the couch, half asleep, and they were just lying around the office going through the script that they were still writing. And they said, could you read some sides and audition for us? And I said to Stephen, do you mind if I use the couch as the car hood? And I auditioned for them.
Hmm.
And they said, yeah, what do you think? He said, works for me. And they said, okay, you've got the role. We'll call you and bring you back out when we shoot. And it was that easy. It was that simple to get into
Yeah.
used cars.
But
And then
before,
they ran, Guccione ran a feature from the magazine. He ran this feature for used cars. And all those things kind of rolled into each other. I'd gotten the Swap Meet movie the year
yeah.
before from a billboard that was a cover of one of Bob's magazines, not Variations, the other one, Forum magazine, had a cover of me on my skateboard, because I used to skateboard around New York. It was my actual board that I used for transportation. And Bob liked it so much, he put it on bus shelters and billboards across the country. The producers out here saw the billboard and called New York and said, do you act? Do you want to play this character? We're looking to add comedic relief to Swap Meet is looking a little grim. And I go, well, that's what I do. I'm the comedic relief. And they gave me a video audition in New York and brought me out to LA to shoot that movie. And, I was pretty clueless. The producer, Stephen Kranz, was a sweetheart, and he put me in a suite at the Bel Air Hotel to introduce me to Hollywood. And I didn't know the rest of the cast weren't staying at the Bel Air. They were staying in Anaheim at Holiday Inn.
Yeah.
And so I didn't really meet anybody much except for the crew and the director and the producer. And somebody would pick me up and drive me to Anaheim every day to the set of Swap Meet. And I didn't mingle. But when I shot Used Cars, was a completely different story, because we're on this huge set in Tempe, Arizona, and they took over an enormous Holiday Inn. It was fabulous. And they had two crews shooting a second crew through the night. And we actually shot my scene, in the middle of the night, freezing in the desert. It was so cold. And it was a big cast, as you know.
Yeah.
And we were on set for months. We were just on set for weeks into months. The first time they shot my scene, it went well, but Columbia didn't approve of the accessories that they gave me. If you've seen it in the show, I sit on the front of the car with disguise goggles on. And when everything goes wrong, I sat up like a model does and put my glasses up on top of my head. Well, the first time we shot it, they shot it with a Mr. Dick Nose glasses, party glasses that have a big phallus sticking off the glasses. So when I sat up and put the glasses up on my head, it went straight up in the air. And when Columbia watched it, they censored it and they said, we can't run that. Of all the things in that movie, they said, we can't run that with that penis sticking off her head. And they said, we can't edit it. So they brought me back out a couple of months later, and we had to just wait on set till we had time to schedule that scene in, and we reshot the entire piece with the goggle eyes thing, like a slinky.
Yeah.
We had slinky goggle eyes, and we had to reshoot the entire piece because they didn't approve of my glasses the first time.
Oh my
And
God,
we
that's
were
hilarious.
way over budget and way behind schedule, and trying to fit that in again. But I must have been on set for 6 to 8 weeks waiting for them to catch a break where we could reshoot that scene.
Oh my God, that's hilarious. Yeah, Zemeckis and Gale had done two flops in a row with Spielberg. I Want to Hold Your Hand in 1941, and this was the third
Yeah,
flop, and then they couldn't get a movie made until Romancing the Stone was a hit, and then Spielberg said, let's do Back to the Future, because
yeah,
they started writing Back to the Future the moment this movie flopped. Bob Gale went back home, saw his parents' yearbooks, and got the inspiration for a story for that. You know?
yeah. And
It's crazy.
like it was so funny because we had the funniest guys on that set with Kurt Russell and Derek Graham and
Joe Flaherty.
and the Lenny and Squiggy guys, right? Michael
Oh,
and David.
I talked to David
And
before he died.
did you?
Yeah.
I borrowed a car from one of the crew, one of the cameramen. We were hanging out for so long, and we'd be in
Yeah.
the hotel at night with little to do but watch Japanese baseball in Kurt's room. We went to concerts. We did all this crazy stuff there. We went to so many country concerts with Waylon Jennings and Willie Nelson. So we were all good pals. And one day David said to me, I'm so bored, let's drive into town. Let's go to, wherever we're going, Phoenix or somewhere. He said, and find cassettes. Let's find some new music.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, okay, he said, do you have a car? I said, I can borrow a truck from one of the crew. So one of the camera guys loaned me his truck. And I said to David, here, we're going to go into town, have lunch, buy some records, go shopping. And I gave David the keys because I didn't drive. And he didn't drive either, but he didn't want to tell me he didn't drive.
Yeah.
So I gave him the keys and David had to drive the truck. And the cameraman was really precious about his truck, going, be careful of it. I can't afford to damage my truck. No. And David had to drive me to town, which was far away. And we went to town and went shopping and had lunch, and he was drinking, and find our way back to set in his truck, but we didn't damage it. But it took us a while, and there were a few false starts. But he gave it his best shot, and he never admitted to me that he didn't drive, and I didn't know the difference. I thought it was a faulty truck.
Oh my God, that's hilarious. I was 9 or 10.
We had a football team. I spent a month with conjunctivitis. I got an injured eye and it got infected. I had a patch on my eye. I've got pictures sitting on this guy's truck. In a cowboy hat, I took off another camera crew and an eye patch from our football game. At night, the crew made their own band, Doggy Style. And the band that were hired to entertain us by the Holiday Inn was so nervous about us taking their band equipment. And we'd all say, don't worry about it. We'd all throw in our per diems, cash, and get thousands of dollars in a bowl, and we'd give it to the local band and say, here, if we damage anything, you can buy better equipment. And we'd take over their stage and their equipment and just jam for hours at night after dinner. But we just did silly things. It was great.
Yeah, I was like 9 or 10 watching this on Encore, and I wasn't supposed to, but I was just laughing. I mean, the kids at home, and he's like, "Hey, look, bare tits," and then you see Dick Miller. He's getting laid at the beginning of the scene, and then after he's done, he sees you. He gets another hard on, and then he looks at his wife, and she's sleeping.
Looks under the sheets. It was very cute. It was a cute scene. And I went to the drive-in movies. I was back in Australia.
Yeah.
I went to the movies with my mum and dad, to the local drive-in with my younger brothers and sisters in the family wagon with pillows and blankets. And we go to watch the movie, and I remember the movies Mum and Dad took us to see at the drive-ins when I was little. We go in to watch the movie and Mum sees me. I come on the screen sitting on the car and Mum goes, "Oh, darling, you look beautiful. You look so lovely." And then the car hood flies up with my dress and Mum goes, "I might have known. I should have known." It's like hardly a surprise in my career,
Yeah. And it's ironic.
Maybe she thought this is the one where the dress stays on. Sorry, Mum.
Yeah, and it's ironic too. Joe Flaherty and Garrett Graham, they were both up for Second City at the same time back in like '69,
Oh,
and Flaherty got in because he was a lot nicer than Graham. Graham had a real ego back then, and I'm sure he told everybody on set when they were making this
oh,
movie.
he could be acerbic, but he was a funny bugger, but very sarcastic.
Yeah,
And the Valley Arts Cinema, the Valley Arts Theatre, was
yeah.
nearby us in Tempe, where the whole Rocky Horror thing started.
Oh yeah.
And he was, what was his, the
Phantom of the Paradise.
Phantom of the Paradise
Beefy.
was playing. It
Yeah,
played in a double feature on
yeah.
Friday night midnights with Rocky Horror. So Friday night midnights, whatever cast were available, not shooting, we'd all go to the Valley Arts Theatre and watch Garrett
Yeah.
in Phantom of the Paradise. I mean, we found the silliest things to do, but we entertained ourselves. We had a blast on that movie. And when I thought I was done and had gone back to New York for Christmas, New Year, and
Hmm.
they brought me back when they regrouped after New Year's. And they were waiting when I arrived back on set, and I walked into the Holiday Inn, had a big dining room and a bar, and they had one of the big stuntmen greet me as I walked in. He downed a beer and then he bit the side of the glass out and
Hmm.
finished off eating the glass. And it was a prop glass, that's made of sugar cane or something. It's
Yeah.
made of sugar. But I didn't know. I thought it was a glass. And he ate it in front of me as I arrived. And they just thought that was so funny.
Yeah,
And it,
John Candy was supposed to play the lawyer that Flaherty plays. He plays two
oh,
characters in this movie.
yeah,
John
yeah,
Candy was supposed to play it, but he was doing another movie or something. But he said
yeah.
later, Candy said, I probably would have been laughing if I saw Grandpa Munster play the judge.
Yeah, he would. And what was our darling lead, the older actor that played the brothers, Luke and
Jack Warden.
Jack Warden?
Yeah,
What a love! He played pranks on me too,
yeah,
because the first day I arrived there, the driver brought me in and took my bags up to the room. I went up to the room and refreshed, and thought I'd like to go out to the set, and meet the cast, go for wardrobe check. So I went downstairs and I said, I'd like to go back out to the set. And they said, who's your driver? And I said, I don't remember. I didn't get his name.
hmm,
And they had pictures on the wall and everything. And uh, this man walks out and they said, oh, are you going out to the set? And he goes, yeah. And they said, do you have a car? Yeah. And they said, would you mind taking Miss Rixon out to the set? And he goes, no, sure, come on, you can ride with me. I'll
yeah,
take you. So he takes me out to the set. I go and meet Kurt and I meet everyone. I sat in the back. I got in the back
yeah,
and I go out to meet everyone on the set. We had some dinner and I go, okay, I'm tired. I'm going to go back.
yeah,
So I went looking for my driver and he sees me and I go, are you ready? Are you ready to go back? I'd like to go back to the hotel. So he says, okay. So laughing, he opens the front door to sit me in the front
mm,
next to him. And I thought, that's a bit forward, but whatever.
yeah,
Sat in the front and I said to him, on the way here, we'd passed a shopping mall. Would you mind if I just pop into the shopping mall to pick up a couple of things? So he drops me at the shopping mall. I said, I shouldn't be long. I go in, I'm shopping. I forget what's going on. I've got bags. And he comes in looking for me, takes my bags, and he said, have you had enough time? We really should be getting back. Puts my bags in the car. I wait for him to open the door again. We get back to the hotel.
yeah.
I go inside, and next morning I come down and I go, could you call my driver, please? I'd like to go out to the set, out to the location. And they go, is Miss Rixon assigned a driver? And they go, I don't think so. Who is your driver? I said, his name's Jack. And they said to me, "Does he look like that?" And they point to a picture on the wall, and I go, "Yes, that's him." And they go, "Jack Warden is the star of our film." And the kid played this prank on me, driving me, knowing I was clueless, waiting for me in the mall, bringing me out to the car with my bags, like, "Is there anything else I can do for you?" And knew that I had no clue who he was.
I like it when he walks in.
That was a joke in the production office for some weeks.
He walks in on the naked girl in the shower, and he's like, "Oh, sorry." It's hella funny.
Yeah, it was a fun thing. It was really, I mean, we got up to so much mischief there.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
I've talked to
one night.
Go ahead.
One night I was leading them in Happy Birthday for one of the crew, leading them with a megaphone singing Happy Birthday, and I was up on like a big crane.
Yeah.
And two girls that I have the feeling they played strippers in the show.
Yeah.
Had a big birthday cake they'd come out with, and I was on the crane with a megaphone leading everybody in Happy Birthday, and Stephen walked on the set.
Yeah.
Everybody froze because he was so over budget and way behind schedule. And he walks on set, and we've got a cake singing Happy Birthday in the middle of the night in the dark. But,
oh my God.
I was worried. I thought, okay, I'm hearing rumors that, this isn't going well. I thought Zemeckis would never work again. I just thought he would never get another job directing a feature. And our cast was so experienced, and they were just cracking up all the time and doing bloopers and playing pranks. And I kept asking Stephen when he'd come on set, "How are our bobs doing? Are they okay? Are we doing well?" Mm-hmm. And he would just shrug and laugh at me. And I ran into him a few years ago. I mean, a long time since then, because we didn't have cell phones, and I lived in New York. I never networked. I didn't pursue Stephen or Bob Gale or Zemeckis. Yeah. I just didn't pursue them. And I just figured I'd see them again. Right? I'll see them again. I'll see them next month. The actors would come into town and call me, and we'd hang out. But I just figured the filmmakers I'd see later. And we're busy. And I was shopping for my son here at a Ralph Lauren shop. And the only other person in the store was Spielberg. Yeah. I looked across at him, and he was trying to look away like, "Oh God, another actress trying to get my attention, And I said to him, "Don't worry, Stephen, it's me. I'm Margaret from Used Cars." I said, "I just wanted to say Zemeckis is doing okay." I said, "I was always worried he would never be trusted with another film." And he goes, "Oh, well, you don't have to worry." He goes, he's done pretty well for himself.
I talked,
and then he looked so relieved that I wasn't looking for a gig.
I talked to Harry Northup, who played Carmine the gangster, and he had done like the first, let's say, 7 movies Martin Scorsese made, and then this was like one of the movies where he was like breaking away from Scorsese and working with other people. He says this was a completely different atmosphere than what he was used to.
It was a party. It was fun for me because I had no responsibility. I did my bit, and I just had to hang around and not be a pain in the butt. While we waited to reshoot my stuff. But they're all sweethearts. Everyone was lovely.
Yeah. So going back to Swap Meet, that movie is hilarious. I love that massage scene with the cop and the boiling hot towel.
That stuff, none of my character was even in that film when they started shooting it. Mm-hmm. And they realized they needed more comedy in it. And when Stephen Kranz had seen my magazine cover and called, they started writing those scenes, and they were just coming up with scenes to interject into the script.
Yeah.
So I was on set, and they'd be writing scenes and giving me the sides either at night to read, read these tonight and we're going to shoot it tomorrow or the next day, or they would hand me extra pages on set. So I just figured that's how things go, that's
Yeah.
par for the course, but it wasn't heavy mental work, not a lot of prep, and we just made stuff up as we went along, and it was really fun. It was really a fun shoot. It was
Yeah.
great.
You got Danny Goldman. He was 40 playing a teenager like he always did.
I loved him. He was delightful.
I tried to
He
get
was
him on
really,
here, but he died
yeah.
before I could. I
Oh,
sent him a DM back in 2019. It was the 45th
yeah.
anniversary of Young Frankenstein, and he's so great in
Oh,
that opening scene when he's antagonizing Gene Wilder.
he's
And
fabulous.
yeah, I don't think he got the message, and then a year later he died when COVID hit.
Oh, I
It,
hate when that happens.
yeah.
I had reached out. I hadn't seen Swap Meet, and I tried to get a copy of it. And I called, it had changed from Columbia to Sony or something.
Uh-huh.
And there'd been these great photos that an on set photographer had taken, that I'd been given a set of slides, like 30 slides from the shoot that were really fabulous. And Guccione had asked me, could he have my slides? He was going to run a feature. They got put into the Penthouse archives in New Jersey, and then there was no retrieving them. They were just gone into those archives.
Mm-hmm.
So I tried to get in touch with Sony to see if I could get those photos again and get a copy of the film. And no one was helpful there. But I found somebody that had a copy of it, and I called the Directors Guild and I said, can I speak to Bryce Mack, who directed Swap
Mm-hmm.
Meet? And they gave me his phone number. They just gave me his own phone number. I called and he answered, and I said, Bryce, it's Cheryl. I'm trying to get a copy of the film. Would you happen to have it? And he goes, no, I don't have that.
Yeah.
And I said, well, I'm going to hunt down a copy. When I get it, I'll get you a copy and send you. And he goes, why? Why would I want that? He said, I never want to see that film again. And I thought, oh, you're just cranky. I'm going to get you a copy anyway. And he really didn't want it. And I thought, oh, that's disappointing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what you can do that's so awful you never want to see it again. I loved seeing it.
Yeah, it's on YouTube. Yeah, it's a great cast. John Grise, he's brilliant. Deborah Richter, Lauren Lester. He just did a Broadway show, Lauren Lester.
Did he? Oh,
Yeah. Lee Stein, I don't know whatever happened to him, but he's like going through your bra, remember?
yes. It's so silly. But I do like all the scenes where I get in the cars with them at the drive-ins, and I'm so into watching the movie,
Yeah.
where I'm loving the movie and don't want them to miss the good bits in the movie, and they're so not interested in the films.
Yeah.
It's really a fun thing. And again, I'm the call girl,
Yeah.
always the happy, friendly call girl. Sandy turning tricks. It's just great.
Yeah. Danny DeVito and Rhea Perlman's in it too.
Yeah. Did they meet on that production?
Oh no, they've been together since like probably the early 70s.
Oh, I thought maybe they met on that. I don't know.
Oh no, they've been together a long time, long time.
Yeah.
Were you in
Well,
the Eyes of Laura Mars?
oh, that was a whole palaver too. I shot with Helmut Newton for the photos for Eyes
Mm-hmm.
of Laura Mars, and so I did dead body stuff that ended up in his White Women coffee table books and the
Yeah.
big giant one. So I shot with Helmut because I was supposed to be in it. And I think they were trying to find places to put some of the Penthouse girls into the movie. They were using the Penthouse girls, some association with Bob Guccione. And I went for an audition, and I had to go onto some lot in the evening It was getting dark. It was kind of creepy. I could hear my footsteps echoing across the lot. I had to go to a wagon to meet somebody that I assumed was De Palma or whatever. And I walk into this Winnebago. I knock, come in. I walk in, and a man sitting reading a script, dark hair and a beard and glasses, says to me, take your clothes off.
Mm-hmm.
And I was so uncomfortable, I just turned around and walked out again and left. And I didn't take my clothes off, and I didn't stick around. And then my girlfriend, Annika Di Lorenzo, said she got that role, and she was playing a nurse. Vicki Johnson was the body double in the shower for Angie Dickinson. And then I watched the whole movie going, where's the nurse? Where's the nurse? Where's Annika playing the role that I went for?
Mm-hmm.
And at the end, in a blue light, the killer, I assume, is in the bed, and the nurse comes in. She has nothing to say. She leans over to help him, and he strangles her.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh, God, I'm so glad I left. I'm so glad I walked out. Why do you need to take your clothes off to be a nurse in a uniform that gets strangled?
Yeah, it's weird.
Know?
Yeah.
But that was part of the course. That was the kind of auditions that we were asked to do. And maybe they want to see your body to be the Angie Dickinson body double in the shower. I don't know.
Yeah. Well,
but I just wasn't comfortable at night in a Winnebago by myself. I was just thinking, how am I getting off this lot? How do I get a taxi?
Well, you got Irvin Kershner, John Peters, and John Carpenter writing, and I was like, those are personalities that are huge.
Yes, yeah. Well, that's how it was, though. All those productions were associated with really big names, or a lot of guys that did these huge productions. I walked out of an audition for Apocalypse Now.
Oh, wow.
And thank God I did. There were no female roles in Apocalypse Now.
No, there's none.
None, right?
Yeah, it's all guys.
Impressive building, beautiful building, a really uncomfortable, inappropriate meeting in an office. And that went crazy. And it was for Apocalypse Now.
Mm-hmm.
And then I saw the movie and I go, where are the females? Some Playboy girls jump out of a helicopter and dance around the stage. And Martin Sheen has a wife who's just a voice on the phone, but there are no females. And I go, thank God I left so many things. 6.5 weeks, I was at a really gnarly audition that all the elite girls had been called to in the building where Johnny Casablanca's office was on a Sunday. And I go in and I see all the supermodels sitting there, and I was looking at them like, oh, they're so beautiful, they're so groomed, they're just such glamazons. Mm-hmm. And I was loving just looking at the girls and being on the list to wait for my audition. They're going in and out of a room, and they're saying they want the girls to really show that they're comfortable with nudity and sexual situations. Mickey Rourke likes to be authentic, and they want to really show that you can be sexy and not intimidated. And they're taking turns going in and out. You hear shrieking and laughing from the audition room. Mm-hmm. And I had a beeper at the time, and it kept beeping. So I went downstairs and phoned home, to answer the call. And they said, get out of there. Kim Basinger signed for this role 2 days ago. They're just shooting their own video.
Oh, my God.
And, oh, my God. There was a bogus audition with the biggest name models that, were in the industry. And thank God I answered the beeper, although I probably would have left anyway. But Kim had already signed for the role. Same thing happened to me with Vacation. Christy Brinkley had already signed for the role, and one of the producers was trying it on,
Yeah.
So it was a dodgy industry if you didn't have the strength to go, no thanks, and walk away.
Wow. That would have been something to see you in Vacation. Yeah, that's a nice credo. A small credo, but a credo nevertheless. It's good to have a credo.
Well, I thought it would have been appropriate considering my car chase in Plug. I started out, the first thing I ever shot was driving around in that red Alpha with
Yeah.
the top down and nothing else. And I thought that would have been very fitting for me to drive the little red car in vacation. Would have been like a, back to school moment.
So were you in music videos?
Yeah, I
Which,
had a band at the time.
uh,
My brother was in a band from Perth,
mhm.
and I loved music pretty much more than anything. And I'd been dating Roger Taylor from Queen,
Oh,
and
wow.
I'd been running from my shoots in New York to Switzerland and back and joining Queen on their European tour.
Hmm.
And that was a blast. That was fun. And I was probably a pain in the ass for them because they were so huge and his schedule was so controlled. And I was just a disruption all the time, getting me back and forth to wherever they were in Europe and then back to New York for my gigs. And I suddenly realized I don't want to be in other people's videos. I
Yeah.
thought, what if I actually pursue a music career? I don't want to be the girl in other people's videos. And I'd already done too many. I had done a lot of things with Judas Priest that I loved because I don't know why nobody thought Rob Halford was gay. Don't get it. But I did a lot of posters that are now iconic. I did a lot of stuff for Cream Magazine and Kerrang
Yeah.
with Judas Priest and Rob Halford, particularly. And even when you Google me, it says I dated Rob, as if.
Oh,
But
God.
between Freddie Mercury and Rob Halford and Elton,
They're all
I
gay.
knew the biggest gay guys in the rock world, and they're all friends. And we would do jokes for Cream Magazine back and forth, each a
Yeah.
hard out Freddie with me on the bike with Rob. And that was the extent of it. And I'd done a Cars video. They'd done a box set for the Cars, and they had wraparound video that were
Which
tying all their
one?
videos together.
Oh, and the Heartbeat City video album? I
Probably, and
have
they
it.
have like a bee or a fly landing on my nose and all crazy
Oh, what
stuff.
you might think? The You Might Think
It,
video?
it might, I don't know.
That's the
And
one. Yeah.
they were really sweet, and we were in silly like pink and black day glow stuff, and they had a fly, and I was doing my cross eye thing, and
Yeah, that's you.
I was
That's you.
shooting this thing, and I thought, why am I doing this? Why am I doing
I am so embarrassed for I
silly?
am so embarrassed for not realizing that was you, Cheryl. I mean, I grew up watching that
Well,
video. My dad and I still crack up whenever we see it.
I've never seen it. I was just on set doing this thing. So it might be. I don't know. I
Yeah.
never saw it. And and I mean I like the Cars, but I'm a headbanger, so
Yeah.
I love Judas Priest and heavier bands. And Queen used to get exasperated with me because I was always playing Priest
Hmm.
and other stuff, and they were like, "We're Queen, could
Yeah.
you not just spend 5 minutes and
Re-
watch our sound check? Listen to
remember?
us."
Yeah. Remember?
And
Oh.
so I did the Cars, and I went, I don't want to do these things. I want to
Yeah.
stick to what I really like.
Remember, you guys are in the movie theater watching the movie. Um, that's Robot Monster, and I've interviewed the little boy who was in that movie, and he knows that you guys had them watching Robot Monster in that video.
It's funny, all the ties in.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's great. But that was it. Modeling was just fun all the time for me. I did love the great photographers that some of them I got to work with, but I really appreciated the skill of photography at that time.
yeah,
And it's kind of lost now. I never, set out to be an actress. So all the movie shtick that I did was also just fun. It was just silly fun. And people would say to me, I saw you in that. You were really good. And I go, I played a model. How could I not be? And they go, you're really convincing as an actress. I go, whatever, you know. I love the camaraderie. I love the crew and the whole set thing. I like a team. I was raised to be on a team. So Penthouse were a disappointment to me in the end, that I'd been such a team player for them for so long. And when I didn't get my prizes, I was just offended that I felt like I was part of defrauding the public, you know.
Yeah.
And I was kind of disappointed that we fell out, but I never had any grievances with Guccione. He was never untoward. All the salacious shows they try and make
Yeah.
shocking about Penthouse and Bob, it turns my stomach because I just see it as so wrong. I don't like the salacious bullshit.
Yeah.
It was always a joyful time for me. I had a lovely time through that whole period.
Oh, that's awesome. Uh, you did a movie in the 90s called Dark Secrets. Now, I never saw this movie, but I'm curious, did you work with Monique Parent?
I don't know. Dark Secrets, a friend of mine wrote,
Yeah.
and he asked me to be in that. And I was supposed to play the dominatrix, the Julie Strain character.
Yeah.
But Julie was my good friend, and Julie was so much better fitted to that role.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't have been comfortable with it. And she was more familiar with that world. And so I played the nightclub owner. I just did a little kind of cameo part as the nightclub owner because my husband and I had clubs in New York, in LA at the time. We had a lot of clubs here. So I was the nightclub owner in real life. So I played that role and introduced them to Julie instead, who they were thrilled to find because she was fabulous looking. And I don't remember really who we worked with other than that. But we did have a night scene where my friend wanted to fill this party with glamorous looking people appropriate to the scene. So I rounded up all my girlfriends here that were Playboy and Penthouse girls. And I loved it that I actually reconnected Annika to Laurie that night. I brought the girls back together that hadn't seen each other since we all lived at Guccione's house. And I brought Kim Fowley, who produced The Runaways.
Yeah.
And he brought a hilarious date that was wearing a swimsuit and a fur coat to an evening party. And we just had the best time shooting this scene. And then we also used Ken. Oh, what was his name? It just came up to me the other day. He'd been in another Playboy film. I'd met him and I called him to come to the party as an extra. And then we all went to Dan Tanner's at 2:00 in the morning to eat.
Okay.
And Ken, right after that, he got a part in a new TV series. You might remember. And the ATV he was driving enrolled and killed him.
Huh.
He was a gorgeous young man who'd just come to
look it
LA.
up. I'll look it up.
Yeah, it was lovely. And he was in I Like to Play Games. He played the romantic lead in I Like to Play Games.
I'll look it up here.
I played his boss in that. I played the ad agency boss.
Let's see. I'm not seeing any Kens here. And Dark Secrets.
No, I don't think he'd get credited. It was just I've made everybody come and be the extras for the party scene.
Okay.
But in I Like to Play Games, Lisa and Ken were the two leads.
Okay.
And that was the same writer. It was a Playboy group that we did a whole bunch of movies for friends, just friends that were making all these movies one after another.
Monique's a friend of mine. That's why I had to ask if you worked with her. Yeah, she's coming back on soon. So
Was she the date? Was she the girl that
She was in
he
so
met?
many of those type of movies back in the 90s. She's
Oh,
embarrassed by it now, but she was in a lot of them.
oh, I don't know why anybody
She was
can
she
be
was
embarrassed by
she was
them.
sexually harassed a lot, and she had a lot of bad
Well, yeah,
experiences. Yeah.
we all did, but you brush yourself off and you move on. You're not the only
Yeah,
one. I don't see
she was a
how you can
serious
even take it
actress.
personally.
She was a
Yeah,
serious actress, and she was, she took whatever came to her, but she,
yeah.
had a
Oh,
lot of
that's a shame.
regrets. By the way, Susan Gallagher is credited as being the girl in the "You Might Think" video. So maybe they replaced you. Maybe you were the first one, and then they replaced you.
No, I don't think they'd reshoot the one I'm talking about. It was a wraparound. It was a video that was tying all the videos together for a box
Yeah,
set.
it was the
That's what they
Heartbeats. It
told
was the
me.
Heartbeat City. I have it on
Was
VHS.
it?
Yeah,
Oh, I don't know.
Warner Brothers
I don't
clamshell.
know.
Yeah,
That would explain why I never saw it.
yeah.
Um, Not that I was a big Cars fan. Yeah, but music I thought might be too close to my heart that I didn't want to really participate in things that I didn't really like.
hmm
And I'm kind of glad that I did that because I look back at the music videos, the scenarios and the sets and the choreography from that time. Oh, I know. I did one for my friend Klaus Luca. Klaus he's a German photographer that was
Uh-huh.
really fabulous in New York, and I worked with him a lot. And he asked me to be a ghost dancer for Nona Hendrix
Oh
for
yeah.
a video he was shooting for her music video. And Nona was dancing, and I was this white ghost in a white leotard and a white sheer cloth over me.
Right.
And I was somehow her alter ego that she had to face all through this video.
Right.
And we worked for like 3 days and nights through the night, sleeping in a Winnebago. When her nails broke, I got out my nail kit and fixed them for her. We really worked on it, and Klaus is my dear friend.
hmm
And then they had the release party for it, the launch party at Studio 54, which I lived at because Steve Rebell was my friend and neighbor. And the production coordinator called me and said, listen, Nona doesn't want us to invite you to the party because she doesn't want you to steal her thunder.
Wow. That's strong words.
Okay, I'm not going to Nona's party. All right. And I thought that was really weird. We were nothing alike. I wasn't going to go there and steal her thunder. I was under a sheet. You never even saw my face. I was under a white cloth.
Yeah.
So I went, okay, that's the industry. And it's things like that that I just think you can't take a lot of it personally.
Yeah.
You're dealing with a lot of egos. I don't have a girlfriend that hasn't been hit on and had very uncomfortable situations happen
Yeah.
to them. And I always felt like you kind of get the vibe. You have a choice to walk away. You have a choice to turn down a role and say, not worth it.
Right.
But, and doesn't just come from the men's side either.
Oh yeah.
You can get hit on by women, which is initially more shocking.
Right.
And I have a lot of actor friends that have been given the option for a role to shoot or not to shoot by female directors.
Right.
So there's a lot of sexual harassment
I know.
in our industry and in others. I think anywhere where you're
Everywhere.
trying to scale a ladder, you're faced with those choices. So
Yeah.
I feel badly for girls that are genuinely hurt by it or that take it on and feel that they can't continue or they're embarrassed by situations that they've been uncomfortable in.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just never thought anything was worth compromising your comfort level,
Right.
So,
So what got you
that's
into jewelry design? Was that something you always did, or was it something you always wanted to
no,
do?
no. I feel like the universe presents you with options, and you decide if you think you can do it or not. I had personal designs coming from an art world. I had drawn pieces that I had made way back in Perth when I was a teenager for my sisters and friends. I'd had stuff made for special gifts. And then years into this, after working in fashion and with collections and silhouettes and seasonal story, I was interested in the storytelling behind fashion. So when I moved out to LA and stopped acting to have my second son, my boys were little. I had a baby and a toddler, and I fell into modeling for other jewelry companies out here.
Right.
And particularly in the rock and roll jewelry field, that silver jewelry that was big, that was biker culture and rock culture.
Right.
And I loved that. And I started making a few pieces as a thank you gift for our staff at one of our nightclubs, The Gate. And a lot of people responded to it and asked me if they could purchase things that I'd made for my husband and for friends. I made a crown ring that Tony Ward gave to Madonna when she was pregnant with Lola Lourdes, but she was baby Lola. And it caught attention and started getting press. And I thought, again, here I am in my 40s with 2 little kids. Maybe I'll just start designing jewelry for friends. And a Japanese distributor happened to be at this jewelry company where I was one day. And he said to me, I love what you do. If you wanted to make a collection, I would like to release it in Japan. Okay, there's a challenge. I made a 60-piece collection, and he took it to Tokyo. And it was something new offered for the market, and it just took off. So it was really fun at first, and I found all my rock musician friends were much more in my life again. I was being invited to sing duets on projects, and I was really popular that I was making jewelry, and it just became a thing. It became a big thing, and then I started traveling to Japan to do press and doing a lot of fashion press, and it became a life, and I discovered I really liked it. I liked telling the stories and creating collections, and it just turned into 25 years of making Japan my third home and designing. So I like that. And I brought all the royalty that I'd grown up with in Australia under the monarchy and the Commonwealth. None of those images were used here. You saw a crown on a Crown Royal bauble. And other than that, there were no emblems of royalty. So I based my whole company, Royal Order, on making everybody royalty, making Hollywood royalty, and introducing crowns and royalism to the market. And then it became a thing. And after a while, I couldn't bear to see another crown on anybody else's collection. And I think everybody got annoyed by it. But I just try and keep it fresh and reinvent it all the time. So I'm still doing that.
That is so awesome. Do you have a website where people can look at your jewelry?
Yeah. Royalorder.com.
Royalorder.com.
And again, that 6 degrees, when I came to Penthouse and I was shooting their fashion stuff for Viva magazine, and then we do more and more beauty and editorial for Penthouse. Anna Winter was our fashion director at Penthouse. And Bob had brought Anna to New York, along with a couple of art directors from England and South Africa. And I had to work with Anna all the time, and she looked exactly the same with the dark shades and the severe haircut, and rarely smiled. and she hated working with the centerfolds because they weren't fashion models. So we used to hire outside, but she had to use me because I had some background in it. And I used to think Anna just didn't like using me for her photo shoots, but I didn't realize that was her temperament all the time. She wasn't a very, giggly girl.
Yeah.
But it was funny going back, and I think all the people would go, do you regret your skeletons in your closet? I think Anna finally attained what her goal was, and she became, this phenomenal head of Vogue. But I think Anna's got the skeletons in her closet more than the girls have. And people get really surprised to realize that Anna was our fashion director at Penthouse Publications. And from there, I went to Playboy when we did Playboy Girls of Rock and Roll in the 80s. I'd left Penthouse, and a lot of my girlfriends lived in LA and they all shot for Playboy.
Mm-hmm.
And Julie Strain and a couple of the girls had gone from Penthouse to Playboy and back and forth. And I think by then, Hefner never seemed to care.
Yeah.
And when I'd be in LA, I would stay at the Playboy mansion. And Hef used to call me that Penthouse girl. And when we had our, what was it, the pajama parties, Midsummer Night's Dream party every year. And all my Playboy girls and Penthouse girls, we'd all go. And at one of them, there were 3 of us wearing a Pet of the Year key, and there were 7 Penthouse centerfolds at the Playboy mansion for the party. And Hef used to laugh about it. He was so easygoing and nice. And he'd just joke, what's all the noise? It's those Penthouse girls disrupting my house.
Yeah.
And it was fun. So Julie Strain had shot her Pet of the Year pictorial at my house in LA with Suze Randall, the Australian photographer.
Mm-hmm.
And we all kind of reconnected on all those things. And when they shot Playboy Girls of Rock and Roll, I used one of the Playboy girls that I had introduced to Penthouse, Brenda Winston, on that. And so Playboy ran lots of stuff, features on us when we did the rock and roll thing. But we just did the video and the magazines. We didn't do the tour. Apparently they cast a tour of girls doing rock and roll songs and took them on the road and did an actual tour. That wasn't us.
Wow. You've had an incredible life. You need to write a memoir.
So, I've tried for years. I've written so much, but editing it down is the problem. I have binders and hard drives full of information and photos.
Yeah.
And so I've decided I have to break it down into different sections because it's all over the place. There are so many things. So right now I'm working on a documentary show for Australia about the 70s and modeling in the 70s. And I thought after that I'll get into the acting and the rock and roll of the 80s. And then the jewelry thing is a completely different world again. It's such a story on its own that I think I'm going to make that a dark fairy tale with a lot of illustration, painting and illustration, an idea I have for an art direction. But it's hard because there's so much stuff,
Yeah.
And I have thousands and thousands of photos and videos. So I don't know.
Well, it's something to consider, at least.
No, it is. I would love to. And then sometimes I'm writing all that stuff. Things come to mind. And I sit and I just binge and write a whole bunch of stuff. And I entertain myself. And I kill myself laughing, going back over it and reading it. Because I'm such a goofball in so much of it. I'm so clueless. And I read it and it's really funny. It's like a a movie. They'd cast me in to be the comedic relief.
Yeah.
And I'm reading this stuff. I started writing a series on the Penthouse time, just an
Hmm.
entire series. And I was watching Vampire Diaries and all these vampire series and thought, this is my Penthouse series, you know?
Yeah.
There's too much to, it's so much the human condition and human interaction
Hmm.
and our emotional uh, dealing with things. Like you say, your friend Monique has regrets and is haunted by what she's done before or what she was asked to do. And I find that really interesting, more interesting than anything else. And as I'm writing, I think, oh, 1 minute I think it's important, and people, I say to people, I design and I make jewelry. There's no value to that. I
Hmm.
had cancer, and while I was in Cedars for a year, I was
Wow.
so awed by the skill level and the caring of the staff. And I thought, it's so humbling to see what true medical caregivers can and do for you. I
Hmm.
felt like what my contributions are nothing. They're so shallow. And then people were saying to me, no, it's really important to be uplifting to people, to entertain people, to make people feel good about themselves is a contribution. And it makes me stop sometimes. And then I'm writing again and reading it, and I go, oh my God, who cares? Who cares what I've done?
Yeah.
Why would anybody be interested in somebody else's life?
Yeah.
And and I start to ponder that, thinking, is it interesting enough?
I think it
And then
is.
my rock and roll friends who write memoirs all say to me, come on, you've got to finish this book. You've got to release your book. It'll be great. But I don't know, I go in and out of that questioning whether it's valuable.
Well, it's something to consider, and
Yeah.
I could talk with you all day, Cheryl. Thank you so much for coming on today. You have just
Oh,
been
you're so
so
welcome.
delightful. I just love your Australian accent and, the Australian demeanor of being so sweet and so respectful and all that.
Oh, thank you. Well, I'm grateful that you're interested and that you're telling people's stories, and it kind of encourages me to keep going and try and put a book together,
Mhm.
edit it down. So I don't know. Call me sometime and give me a kick in the butt.
I would love to. And you have yourself a great day. Be safe out there. And oh, by the way, I wanted to tell you, you have the belly button of an angel.
Oh, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. My mother tells me that, and
Really?
I hadn't thought before how a belly button can look different to anyone else's belly button, and I found it does.
Okay, have a great
So
day.
thank you for that. I'm going to go stare in the mirror. Okay.
Okay.
Bye, Tommy.
My pleasure. Bye bye.
Bye.
Well, there you have it. Cheryl Rixon, ain't she a sweetheart? Oh my God, I love her energy. I love listening to her talk. I could have talked to her all day. Go to her website, royalorder.com, and check out her jewelry. I'm going to do the same. It's got to be gorgeous, just like her. Well, until next time, this is Tommy Throwback Kovac saying there's no shame in living in the past because the present sucks. Later, dudes.